Okay, now that we've got our mockup basically complete, one of the things that we can talk about is how to save these pieces and components out. I mean, this is nice as a mock-up to present to somebody, and you can tell them, okay, well, look, this is the mock-up, but there's some different things that you might need to know about, different versions of image files that you would save out and why you would use different things and when. So the first thing that I would suggest is that this is in fact a mock-up. You're not necessarily just going to hand over a PSD when you're just showing maybe a client or developers or a team your ideas. So the first thing that you would want to do is just save out maybe a high resolution JPEG or just a really good quality JPEG. So the first thing that we're going to do is make sure that we're only showing the stuff that we want to show, and no more, no less. Oh, and look what happened. Something happened somewhere with our button for the send button, and it's gray instead of blue. So little things like that, make sure that you double check it before you send out that final thing and make sure that something didn't get accidentally selected. So let's go fix that real quick. All right, so it's in the contact us section. So let's expand that, and it's also part of the form. And here we go. This is our vector. With our selection tool, we're going to select that, and then we're going to choose the correct color. And it's this paler blue for the fill, and we'll do it this way. Okay, so there, that's correct. That's the way we I think want it to look. And click off of it, and that's good. So now we're in the money, and we can go ahead and export this. Now there's some different things to think about, and one is you could do save as a JPEG, but a much better way to do it would be to go to File and then go to Export, and then go to Export As. And I showed you this before in a previous demonstration with the logo, but yeah, so if you come here, you can export the full width image, and I'm going to change the quality up to 100%. And then whenever you see the percentage, you can see that it's a 1.6 megabyte file. If you want to make the quality a little bit less, like maybe, I don't know, let's try 70, we can see how much that changes the file size, and it's pretty significant, and it'll probably still look pretty good. So we can just change the percentage, but we don't want to change the scale, and we are going to leave it as sRGB, and we'll go ahead and click on Export All. Okay, and we're going to give it a new folder inside of our main folder, and we're going to call it Mockups. Okay, and we'll save that inside of the main folder, and we'll just save that out as a JPEG, export it, and let's go take a look at it actually. Let's go to the Finder. Okay, and it's showing me, here's my mockups folder, and you can see right here, if you want to look at it in a browser, we can open up a browser window. Okay, so I just opened up a browser window here, and I'm going to drag this file, I'm just going to drag it into the window so that we can take a peek at it. And what it's going to show you, it's going to try to fit the entire thing in, but if we click on the plus symbol at 100%, you see my screen happens to be 1280 by 800. So it's actually, my screen is actually the correct dimension for this. So you can see what it would look like if we scrolled. And the quality could be a little bit better. I can see a little bit of artifacting in here, but it's not too bad. And let's talk about some other things that you can do. Now that was just saving out the entire mockup. Now there are going to be times when you're going to need to save out individual images from your mockup so that somebody could use those images later to build the website. Well, there's some different ways that you can do that. One is you can actually go into the original files and you can save them out that way, and just do the save for web and open them up individually. Another way is that you can save them out of this document. And I need to explain to you which things actually should be saved and which shouldn't, and how you should make some modifications. And this is something that, there's a very good chance that you're not going to really understand, other than I'm going to explain to you maybe some different methodologies. And it doesn't mean that you forever have to remember this, but this is something that you should be at least exposed to. So if we go and we look through this document, let's just talk about what would be an image and what wouldn't be an image. First of all, this navigational bar would not be an image. Even though it has a drop shadow and everything, it's not an image. It's something that would be developed through code. It has a flat background color. There's no reason to have an image for this, and it's just going to be text that gets generated with HTML. No need for an image there. Now, this blue architectural detail, that's an image that somebody would need. And in fact, this is one where we'd really kind of need to generate it from this mockup because it is clipped in a certain way and the original's not. And so this is a good example of why you'd want to generate this one from this document. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute, but I want to walk through this so that we can identify what's what. Now, this badge is something that we would definitely need to also generate as well. You could generate it in some different ways. You could generate just the logo and expect somebody to put the Warner and Mitchell design words in HTML with special CSS styling so that it gets the colors it needs. It's really kind of up to you. As an example, I'm going to show you how to generate out the entire badge for simplicity's sake. We don't need to generate anything that has text. The idea is that people should be using, instead of text images, people should be using real text and web fonts. Most companies now are trying to at least do the right thing and subscribe to web font services if they're big enough and they have the budget for it, because that's really the correct way to be using font licenses. So there's no way that you could actually presume that everybody would have this font on their computer, and if they don't have it on their computer, then it would substitute something else that's maybe uglier, like Arial or, you know, Verdana or something that's on everybody's computer. And then this image right here, this image could, well, it should actually be generated from this document also because it's being clipped in a specific way as well as this one, so it would have the correct ratio and dimensions. Now, what we don't want is we don't want this banner on top that says commercial gallery with the drop shadow or with the opacity layer. We don't want that. That's something that would be generated through code by a developer. We don't want this text. For our team, we would definitely want to generate this background image by itself without these pictures, and that's not a hard thing to do at all, and we would generate that from this document. Now, these little icons, if we had made each one of these icons absolutely perfectly at 150 pixels, we wouldn't necessarily have to generate them from this document. However, whenever I placed them in there, several of them had to get clipping masks or get vector clipping paths attached to them to crop them and fit in this area. So in this case, we will have to generate all of these from this document. But what we don't want to generate is we don't want to generate the drop shadow and the border, the stroke. That is something that would be styled through CSS and through the code. We just need to generate the little images, and we don't need to generate the words underneath. Again, now this part where it's the Google map, we don't actually need to generate that image because a developer or a programmer would actually be putting a Google Map API right inside of here, one that is not just a picture, but it's actually an active, interactive, I should say, map where you can move it around and zoom and pan and get information from it. So this is just a placeholder. It actually isn't really something we're going to generate. This background with the typewriter is something we'll generate because it has that white screen on top of it. And then basically, and nothing else in this form would be generated because this is all stuff that can be done in CSS. This blue square or this blue rectangle with the word send and it has an outline, all CSS capable. The logo down here is a picture we would have to generate. And so is this icon, not the word top, but the actual icon button for clicking to have it scroll back up. So those are the things that we need to basically send out as images. Now, I'm going to show you a way that you can do that. Okay, so first, let's just start with something simple. Like, let's start with this badge. Okay, if we go up to go to the header, and we'll open the header up, we have the logo badge layer. Now, one of the things that we don't really need, we need the badge, but we don't need the effects. I'm going to turn the eyeball off because that drop shadow can be better made in CSS, and it's actually probably a better idea that it is. All right, so we're going to create logo badge without the effect. The effects are only so that we can communicate what it's supposed to look like in the mockup. So while this is selected, what I need to do is I need to change the word where it says logo-badge, and I need to put a file extension on the end and say .jpg. Let's just say that that's going to be a JPEG. Now, if this is a JPEG, we need to tell it also like what quality to be. And let's say that we want it to be the highest quality, so I'll put in the number 10 because the number 10 is the highest level of quality whenever we're generating out these JPEGs. So if I do that, and that's the only thing that has a file extension on it, watch what happens when I go up to File, Generate, Image Assets. Okay, looks like nothing happened, right? Well, let's take a look at something in our directory. Okay, so let's go into Werner Mitchell, and look what happened. It created a folder for us that has the same name as the actual PSD file, which corresponds, of course, with this PSD. So if you wanted to make sure that it was really, really clear to you, you could color code these or something if you're on a Mac or whatever. But anyway, I'm going to go in here. So the thing that's important is that it created it in the same directory as the PSD file, and it made it a new directory with that same name. So if I go inside of this folder, look what it did. It made a badge for us, just like we asked it to. That's pretty cool. Now watch what happens. Let me show you something. If I go here and I turn that layer effect back on, watch what happens automatically. And this is just too cool. And it's something that is pretty new. Now if I look at it, you see that there is actually a drop shadow on it. So this is something that happens automatically in live. It just updates your files. Anything that has a file extension on it that looks like a file name, it just fixes it for you and it sticks it in that image asset folder. Really, really cool. So I'm going to end this demo here, but go to the next one and I'm going to show you more advanced ways that you can actually generate these image assets by doing different versions of stuff, by doing different file types, and so forth.